Here's some, what do you call it? Some concept art for Mr. Nixon, the little incubation tanks there, the different styles. So this is something I drew up while I was at work and shipped it over to DeMaggie via Skype. And we obviously chose which one we were using there. There's the examination table, the main body of it, and then the domes that would go behind the head, which just ended up being the Dalek bomb anyway. So there's Mr. Nixon's tube there before he got stuck in it. Obviously had some issues with the glass texture there, which got rectified later. That is just while I was doing testing. I think the one on the right was bugged out, and he must have been part of the quest line at some point. He didn't want to have anything to do with anyone. He just stood there, not attacking. So this was just, I turned around to see this like face off between Sparky and this unknown guy. And there's Nixon in his tube, hanging out, blinking at you. And here we have the starting of the opening Dalek. So that was the work in progress there, along with the work in progress for the examination table. So a little model work in Blender there. There's a really bad picture of it after it was done. The incubation tanks in their full glory there. Well, not full glory, they were still being worked on. But adding in the front consoles. I did a lot of, do a little bit of building in Blender, export the whole thing, put it in the game, look at it. And here we have some concept art for the control room, for the Supreme Dalek or whoever he was. So the upper pedestal and then the panels for him. And just shaping it there, work in progress, and then now you'll see it in the game itself. As I said, I always double check it as I go. Obviously revamped it quite a bit there in between the two pictures. Adding in the control panels for him. And Sparky not just ignoring him as he was up there and walking through them. Here's some of the screen pictures that I used to make the front panel for the opening title sequence. This is the one that slowly moves down and out of the way for the rest of the title sequence to happen. And you'll see a little bit of just a screen grab here. You can see some of the fragments on the model itself for the text. So I was just trying to see where those fragments were. And here we have just a very quick smashed up version of one of the Dalek armors there. So the destroyed version. This was done in 2 seconds just to see, just to showcase what could be done with them and to make sure I was getting the look right. And then obviously much more detail was added into them. And just some screenshots of the goopy, slidey, outy yuckiness. These Daleks are having a bad day. And just playing with some of the textures there for the slime and goop. See if I could get one that kind of looked right, I guess. Not too glowy and not too plain. And here we get into Tumorassalon. So obviously I started building this in the library. Why I picked all these different places to start building things, I don't know. But I did. So, you know, one console was made in the wardrobe, one was made in the galley. Here we have the Tumorassalon being made in the library. So there's the first kind of stone wall segment there, and this is the kind of initial layout that was going to be the main tomb room. As you can see, there's the starting within its own cell, finally. So just getting a reference to the size of the room itself, and whether or not I was going to have to make any changes to that. Adding in the scuffed floors, which that was exactly what they look like in that episode. So I think that's the entranceway to the room there, and just an overall general look at the size of it and the general layout. And Mr. Sparky having a cruise. There's the back teleporting pad there added in. And okay. So this was an issue with the Silurians. Their weapon that Spyduck made, whenever they died, the weapon just stood static in the middle of nowhere, right in the air, and their bodies would just slowly rotate around it. just floating in air with their hands stuck to it. So this is a picture Maggie sent to me. He asked me, SpyDuck was horribly busy at the time, so he asked me if I could see if I could fix it. After numerous re-exports and rewrites, it finally worked for whatever reason. I have no idea. So I fixed that issue, and here's a test shot of it being fixed. So it wouldn't float in the air, although the guy would still hold on to it and wouldn't let go. And then also, for whatever reason, if you headshotted them, their head would come off, but their glasses would stay put. And there's the game of Pi being added in. The room itself, adding in the dome and the ceiling to it, since you never really saw that in the show. Adding the top of the tomb. And here we have, so that's just some concept art for the exterior of the tomb, because at the time I couldn't remember what it looked like. So I just drew that up before I actually, while I was at work actually, before I went home and watched the episode. So I was close, but you know, it was a little different, but that's all right. There's the exterior. I never figured out how to do the long distance models, so that was left up to SpyDuck. There is the starting of the model for the Meta Spider, and you'll see what happens when you don't position it correctly in NifScope right now. So obviously a little bit of resizing and repositioning was required. And these are the screenshots that I used to make the rest of the loading screen consoles. So a very quick retexture and slight addition to the model for the Hartnell and the sort of John Pertwee versions there. Third Doctor, I should say. This was the start. I originally started on doing the Toyota console. So that was the start of the room there, adding in the details that I had added into the Eye of Harmony. But this never got much further than this, I don't think, unfortunately. Here is concept art for the original Fallout 4 mod, the engine room. So this is where you're going to go and connect all your, physically connect all your power lines for all your different subsystems. So this was original concept art for that. This was going to be situated right directly below the console room. So there was going to be little opening panels, and then the center thing that was just to signify that's where your power was going to be coming from. So here's a look at the different, the way the panels would work. So each panel would have a little door that you would activate. It would just kind of sink in to open up and expose the components inside. And then each subsystem was going to have a separate model for, or each component was going to have a separate model for them. So there's, this is only in New Vegas in the game. This never made it into Fallout 4. So here's just some work in progress of size comparisons. There you can see I added a little bit more room. And here's a little bit of concept to fill in the gaps and show where the center pedestal was going to be for running your power lines. And here is a view of, I know you're wondering, why am I upside down? This was just sort of concept for the upper portion of the room. So originally you're going to have your main components down below, and then the upper portion of the room was going to have a mirrored look to it. So it was going to just have open panels, no doors, and then just have like piping and wire that extended way out of view to give the sort of huge feel to the inside of the engine room. And here we have some of the background detail work. So on the little circles, there's cylinders in there. That's where the main subsystem component models were going to sit, and you would wire them in. And the rest of it was just static detail, pipes and wires, circuit board, just filler nonsense to give the illusion that there was more to it than just a couple of plugs. And here is some concept art for the different subsystems, or at least this one was the dematerialization circuit. So this was going to be the model itself that was going to be stuck onto those cylinders, and then you would plug the wires in. This was a side project for Demegi, I believe, so just cracked roundels. A nice view of an angel there, and there's the hatchway that opened up. So there's the model work that I was working on, stealing the circuit board. from the engine room. And here we have the starting of the Hartnell console. This was, as I said, this was going to be the console for the release of the Fallout 4 version of the mod. So just slowly adding in the detail for the panels there. And once this is all done, I've got some comparison shots, and then I've got the actual layouts, so the original control layout for the panels you'll see momentarily. This is my favorite model. She's nearly completed there, or is she? I think she is actually. Yeah, just showing some close-ups of the different details that I'd added in. There's a top view, so I could do this comparison shot with the top view from Adventures in Time and Space. Very close. Obviously, their Adventures in Time and Space, some of the knobs were of different dimension. They weren't quite accurate to the original version, the original 1963 version. But so that's where I based my model off of, directly off of the 63 version, which I'm pretty sure I've said before. So these were the screenshots that I used to then compile all of the panel layouts, which you'll see now. So here you have panel 1, all the different controls and what they were going to do. As I had said previously, every single main switch and just about every button had a purpose. It had a different separate control. It was definitely a busy console, and I was okay with that. I think that would have been a lot of fun to play with. And here is a start of the Hellbent roundel, because originally, so I was making the console, and I think Spyduck had at the same time had started on the console and the 63 version of the room. So I had started making the Hellbent version because it was still up in the air as to whether or not we were going to go with original Hartnell console and room or with the Hellbent version of it, sort of clean slate, I guess. So here you'll see some in Blender work that I had done to make the Hellbent console room. So the walls and the weird square panel, and which obviously led to the console, or sorry, the corridor pieces here. There's the original gray and then followed up by the green. I should have stuck with the gray. The gray looked a lot better. A lot better. So there's the original plan for where the engine room was going to be located. So I had to make a sort of circular staircase leading down to it. So there's the work in progress for this. And this was my first model that I actually got in game. Let me tell you, the celebration that I had when I finally got a model into Fallout 4. As you'll see, there was no collision mesh on it, so my static character struck this pose. So obviously I had to celebrate with the "Yes, I am all that is man." It was just, that was the way he posed when I came in with no clip on, so I ran with it. Hooray! And there's a couple of detail shots of the stuff that I had underneath the stairs there, so you could just see some of the piping that was running up and through. And it's going to add some wires and stuff. And here is the work in progress Blender model of the engine room itself. So you would walk down the stairs into a room such as this. This is after we decided to revamp it, so it wasn't following the current series. It was more in tune with Hartnell and Hellbent sort of era. So this was just kind of some ideas as to where we were going to put the different components, and they were going to change as well, as you'll see coming up. Here we go. So this is what the components were going to look like. They're going to have a little bit of a roundel effect to them, and that's where you would plug in your wires. And finally, we've got some stuff from another one of DeMaggie's add-ons here. You saw that this right at the end of my last video. So it's just the Coal Hill sign. There's a Totters Lane, what do you call it, underground sign there, and the fence that was just a shot from Blender there. And there you have it. That's all the screen pictures that I've got. Some work in progress stuff there that will never make it into the game. Things that changed as they progressed. But that's it. That just about wraps up everything that I've got material-wise for the Fallout Who mods, both the New Vegas version and Fallout 4 version. So I think that just about wraps up this mini-series. I really can't think of anything else unless I left out a sound effect or something like that. If there is anything that you would like to see, leave a comment below. Let me know. I can't really give any examples of it, but if there's something that you're curious about or how it worked, let me know, and I will get back to you. Maybe I can make a short video on to answer questions and stuff like that, if there are any. All right. I hope you've enjoyed. Ciao.